I'm sorry I'm late. African time or CP time. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm late. I just arrived in the house and I went out. I'm beginning to think that Sundays are the days that I go out literally because I'm just, I just love to go out, and now the weather is warming up, so I really, really am enjoying going outside. But anyway, I just came back, and sorry I'm late again. Whew. I'm still like breathing hard because I was running upstairs. But so first we're gonna talk about what? We're gonna talk about crime in South Africa. So this one is a hard one because it's a hard one because there's just so many layers. There are just so many layers that are involved when it comes to talking about crime. But I know that it's a topic that is very it's something that every South African talk about, especially the ones that left South Africa. So I just don't want people to think this is gonna be a bash South Africa video. No, it's not gonna be one of those. And I think I'm not even gonna define what really crime means to a lot of South Africans because we know it, right? Just as again, I like to give a background information because I think it's always good to take things in context and understand things from from the perspective of someone who've actually experienced something. So while people have not come on, I hope people were not waiting and they had to leave. But anyway, let me take off my shoes. So I just want to say that a lot of us, oh, I'm relaxed now. A lot of us understand what crime is. So just to give you a background story on my experience. So as a South African growing up, I grew up with a lot of crime, and I was actually mugged probably a few times. Okay. I remember one time I must have been like a little kid, literally maybe around 12 years old. I was robbed by this guy who actually took my money that my mom had asked me to go and get gas or petrol, that in South Africa, petrol. So this guy basically lured me away and grabbed the money from my hands and actually scratched my hands to take the money. So, and then, like we all know, we've all had, I think, stories. And additionally, I know that my sister recently was robbed in her at gunpoint. We know about the hijackings. We know about all those things, and the problem that I have, it's not that it's just that you never know when it's going to happen, and it's a huge problem for the average South African. I mean, it's a huge problem for the people who are rich in South Africa, but it's also a huge problem for the people who live in the townships. Since I've been in America, I've been to South Africa a few times, maybe every 3 years. I can't remember. So that would make about 5, 6 times or so. And every time I go to South Africa, I see some improvement. So that's very encouraging to me. Because a lot of us, and I'll tell you the truth, a lot of South Africans who live abroad would rather live in South Africa, but they are so afraid of living in an environment where they have to watch their backs on everything, right? And I know in America there is crime for sure, but it's not as visible or as prevalent as you would expect in a huge country like America. So really this video, I wanted to focus more on, I wanted to focus more on solutions, right? Because it's easy to complain about crime. We know what crime is and we know how it affects us. But what I wanted to point out was that when I was in South Africa last time, I really felt a little bit safer. probably more than I've ever felt in South Africa. But again, I mean, we lived in, like we stayed in nice neighborhoods in South Africa, upscale neighborhoods, but you could see security was everywhere. Like you had like the security companies, you had like a lot of security guards that were basically just like keeping things in order. And this was in Constantia. Those who are from Cape Town know what Constantia is. Even in Johannesburg, I didn't feel threatened, like as I felt in the past. So that's a good thing. But in the township, it's still very much unsafe for people. Even though I did go to the township and I had a great time, but it's still very much unsafe. And what it has done, basically, it has changed the culture of South Africans. South Africans have gotten used to live with crime, and a lot of them have kind of like forgiven it and said, no, this is the new normal, and we should just live with it. That's something I think is probably the most dangerous thing we can do, to be nonchalant about it, or to feel like it doesn't matter that much. There's crime in other countries as well. And I totally agree. There is crime in other countries, but it's not the kind of crime that you would expect, like in a big country like the United States. It still feels very safe in America. Even when you go to big cities like New York, it still feels very safe compared to South Africa. Where I feel safe in South Africa is mostly when I go out of the city, like if I go like small towns, if I go to the village, I feel a lot safe. Even though crime now is starting to ramp up in villages as well, because there's so much security in big cities like Cape Town. So, but the question then becomes, and just to summarize this point, is that we should never accept that crime is normal. No, that will be, in my view, the biggest mistake. We should never accept that. We should understand that it's a problem, and it's a problem that needs to be solved, and it's a solvable problem to begin with. So what should we do? And I'm going to start now with what I think should be done, okay? Because before I start with my solution, let me just say, if South Africa didn't have crime, South Africa will probably be the top country in the world. Because South Africa is such a beautiful country, such a diverse country, it's such a naturally beautiful country. Like everywhere you go, there are mountains, there's ocean, there are plains, like you name it, South Africa has it. But crime is a huge problem. And that crime, apart from, and let me not get started on the solution. Let me just say, if there was no crime, South Africa would be the number one country in the world. Okay? So let's now go to what should we do? What should we do? So to give those who are not South African a context, you have to understand that South Africa is it has a recent past, and I'm not going to excuse anything, but I just want everybody to understand. South Africa has a recent past of racism, and that racism has resulted in extreme inequality. You go to places like, let's say, Camps Bay, and it's like you're in another world. It's absolutely beautiful, so opulent, so beautiful, so, upscale, rich, and all of that. And then you drive in fact, you don't even drive far. There are people who live in shacks who serve those same mansions that I just talked about. So you have those kind of extreme inequality. And it's something that South Africa has to deal with as it deals with crime. So now to my solution. I believe that South Africa should have a reconstruction period, because we never had that. We went straight from being, having apartheid to being crazy in love, never really thought about what, how things are going to work. So I think we need a period, maybe a 20 to 100-year period. You say you're thinking I'm crazy. I'm saying that because pretty much every country where they've had to do a reconstruction, whether it's Europe or whether it's, it's China, all these places had to create a period where they basically fix their country the way they want to fix it. Okay? South Africa is as I said, we jumped from what was an extreme case to another extreme case without really thinking. So we need a period, 20-year to 100 period. The reason why I say 20-year to 100 period, because we need a generation of reconstructing the country, where we change the values of the country, where we change how people think and see and understand how things work. And that's going to require a generation and a lot of sacrifice. And everybody's going to sacrifice. And the only way, I'm going to try and not look at your comments until I'm done making my point. Sorry, guys. But what I was going to say is, ultimately, this period is going to be what I call a reconstruction period, where we have extreme tough laws. Okay, the laws are going to be something that you see in what people consider dictatorship, and I'll tell you why. Because we need space and time in order to rebuild a culture, a new culture, new values, new everything. And that part of it is going to require that we become very tough. But in our toughness, we have to balance that with extremely funded social programs that will basically help people get out of poverty, help people get out, have opportunities. And that's a sacrifice that the rich will have to make in South Africa in order for South Africa to be where it needs to be. When it comes to punishment, okay, I'm not talking about here people who go and steal a loaf of bread and then someone goes berserk and decide to shoot a person because someone was hungry. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the hijackers. I'm talking about the people who grab people's cell phones. I'm talking about all those people, or the people who shoot at other people. Those people need to be punished severely, including returning the death penalty. Because if we don't do that, if they don't understand that there are consequences, then there's nothing that will change. If anything, we'll have to change to accommodate criminals. And that's not how we should ever live in South Africa. And also, by the way, I'm not only just mad at the criminals that are violent, I'm also mad at the white-collar criminals, and I want their punishment to be just as severe. That way, everybody can sacrifice. Everybody is going to have to sacrifice. And also, the people who buy, let's say, stolen goods, knowingly buy something they know that it's stolen, they need the same punishment as a thief, in my view, because that will force everyone to rethink their position. What we've been talking about in the past few years are people who, who shoot at people at gunpoint who rob people at gunpoint. We talk about, petty thieves. We talk about all these things. I'm talking about making sure that everyone who commits a crime in South Africa, whether it's white-collar crime, because white-collar crime, what does white-collar crime do? It prevents people from getting the opportunities that can allow them to get out of poverty, because people cannot invest, because you have people who are stealing millions and millions of rands out of South Africa. They deserve to be punished just as much as those people who rob people. So once we have that once everybody's aware of the punishment, then at that point you create space and time for people, good people, who want to make South Africa work, a space and time for them to create whatever it is that they need to create to make South Africa a better place for all. So I want you to take one thing. If you take one thing from here, is that we're all going to have to sacrifice in terms of punishment. Everybody's going to be punished if they hurt South Africa. Then we need to create a curriculum, a post-colonial curriculum, post-apartheid curriculum that is designed to restore the value of every human being in South Africa. And that includes the poorest of the poorest and the richest of the richest. We need to treat everyone the way a human being deserves to be treated. That means that that curriculum will emphasize values that will carry South Africa forward. I know you're probably thinking, how the hell are you going to do that? We teach everything. You look at recycling, and I always use this example of recycling. Not too long ago, in less than probably a generation, we didn't recycle. But today we recycle. We don't even think about it. We just do it because we think it's the right thing to do. So we need to teach the curriculum, to teach young black kids in South Africa that when you hurt yourself or you hurt someone else, you're not doing it because that's natural. That's your natural state. You're doing it because you've been raised in an environment where violence is valued over everything. Greed rules over everything. Wealth, it's all about the wealth rather than the well-being of the people. Those kind of values are something that we have to instill. They don't just come out of, like thin air. We have to instill. I'm of the belief that we are born good, but society screws with us so much that we become bitter, angry, and we go out and hurt other people. Because we are hurting ourselves. So, and that goes for everyone, because I've seen violence from everyone. There's a lot of violent people in South Africa, and it's not just, like the poor kid that's out there on the street. It can be the richest person sitting somewhere and enjoying what they believe is theirs. Do you understand what I'm saying? So everybody needs to change, and everybody needs to sacrifice, and everybody needs to give up something for the benefit of South Africa. And so, and I know that people are gonna take what they want to take from this vlog, but ultimately what I want you to take is that everybody has to sacrifice. You have to make South Africa work for everyone if you want a better South Africa for everyone. So that's what I'm going to say. So now, before this vlog gets too long, I am going to answer your questions. Sorry, let me see who let's see. We need positive role models. Fia says, in addition, we need supportive leadership. We need positive role models. I totally agree. You cannot ask the citizenry to do something that you as the leadership is not willing to do. You cannot do that. You have to absolutely make sure that you model the behavior that you want to see. Because leaders, whether they like it or not, they are people who are put up there by the public because the public trusts that they will do the right thing. So if the leadership is not willing to do the right thing, then you're going to have a moral decay either way. So you might as well not have leadership, right? So I totally agree with you there that we need a good leadership, but good leadership is not always only the president. Good leadership, actually, the best leadership is the one that's on the ground with the people, and it's leading with the people and understand what people are going through. What I think one of the biggest things that happened in South Africa was that we had people who are in politics, who have access to an amazing amount of wealth, and a lot of them moved out and lived in their nice neighborhoods and totally forgot about the people on the ground. And then when those same people that voted them in come for them, they don't understand. They're like, what are you asking for? Why are you mad? People are mad because they put you in positions of power so you can make a difference in their lives. Because we're not, like, we live in civilizations. The point is, we live under government, and living under government means that somebody has to do their job to make sure that everybody is basically taken care of. By that I mean citizens are protected, there's opportunity, all those things that are required to make a civilization work. And so I totally agree with you there. So let's see. I have relatives who were hanged by the apartheid government. My family, this thing, sorry, Ian. I have relatives who were hanged by the apartheid government. My family had to correct his last name that was spelled incorrectly. I'm extremely opposed to capital punishment. Ayanda, I totally agree. This is not the kind of capital punishment that was just, like somebody looks at you and be mad at you and decide you deserve to be hanged, or somebody decide you in a wrong place at the wrong time, you deserve to be hanged, or somebody you didn't say menier or sir, therefore you deserve to be hanged. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about they're hurting, the criminals are hurting us all. My sister and her daughter was held at gunpoint, and my sister, I mean, she tries everything, she works hard, she does everything that she needs to do. She was held at gunpoint with her daughter. Imagine that. If my niece was a boy, the likelihood of her growing up and becoming just a criminal would be very, very high. I'm not saying that girls are incapable of being criminals, but like most of the time, it's saying that I have bad connection. Last time, when I've had bad connection, it did restore it by itself. But let's continue. So I'm talking about someone being taken to court, proven guilty, and then being punished accordingly. That's the only way we're gonna send a message. And this is not a forever thing. It can be a period of, let's say, 20 years, where you say, I'm trying to do one thing and one thing only, which is to open up space and time for South Africa to rebuild the right way. And again, it's not just about, the reason why a lot of black people are opposed to capital punishment in South Africa, because it was always applied wrongly and unfairly. It's the same thing here in America, where capital punishment and the law is used to intimidate and make black people feel like they're second-class citizenship. That's not what I'm talking about. There are a lot of white-collar criminals. There are a lot of people who intimidate and terrorize people who are farm laborers and stuff like that. So I'm not saying that it should be unfairly or disproportionately applied. I'm saying that it should be really applied in situation where the criminality has been proven and it's clear, to give again South Africa an opportunity to rebuild. It's sort of like a Marshall Plan, so to speak, because think about it, sometimes there are things you have to do drastically in order to get where you need to get. And that's basically what that would be. So I was totally opposed to capital punishment, because I also believe that it's you must have mental issues or something must be going on in your life to just go out and kill people, because I don't believe that we are born evil. I believe that we are born good people, but things happen in our lives that can make us do evil things. And so all I'm saying is that I totally understand that, but I'm also not excusing it. And I'm saying that even if you have an extreme case where someone has done something to you, and in fact that will prevent people from feeling like I have to revenge, which basically spirals South Africa out of even more control, right? I'm saying that if the government, especially the police in South Africa, that's another thing, the police in South Africa have to do their job, and they have to be very strict. South African police are not doing their job, and I'll tell you why. Again, I've had experiences where I called 10-111 when I was in South Africa, where we had an accident. Nobody picked up. Nobody picked up. We were in Barawat, by the way, in Eastern Cape, and so and we see a police car passing on the main road where we are. We flag it down, and the car is full of police. They're probably going to goes to some jol or something. A jol, to those who don't know, it's a good time, so they were probably going to have a good time. They were filled in the car, not doing what they were supposed to do. And what do you know what I did? I asked the locals here, where's the police station? And I had to walk all the way to the police station. When I get there, the police are sitting there, not doing anything, not picking up the phone. And I asked them, how can you treat our people this way? Do you know what the guy said? He said, is there anybody dead? I said, how are you going to know if somebody's dead if you're not picking up the phone? How would you know that? So, but anyway, I didn't mean to digress. But the point is that in order for people to stop avenging or revenging either they're avenging for their family members or revenging for themselves, the police have to do their job and the law has to do its job. And then you're gonna have a safe South Africa. In fact, as I said, a lot of South Africans, including me, we would be in South Africa if South Africa had no crime. That's just the truth. Those who say otherwise are not telling the truth. And I spend a lot of time in South African groups, whether on Facebook or anywhere. I spend a lot of times, a lot of them rather be in South Africa, but they just can't, because they compare their lives here and the lives they would have in South Africa in terms of crime, and they choose to be here purely on those bases and nothing more. Okay, so I went too far. So let's say also need morally, oh sorry, Nita Benita says, capital punishment won't stop people from committing crimes. I believe in prevention and rehabilitation. I totally agree. It's not a long-term solution. It's a short-term solution to create space and time to rebuild South Africa. I'm a believer in social programs that are designed to help people. A lot of rich people are so unfair in South Africa because they don't want investments in social programs, but they complain about crime. You can't have it both ways, right? We need to invest. We need to make sure nobody goes to bed hungry in a country that's as rich as South Africa is. We also need to make sure that we as I said, we teach a value system, a new value system through the school system. Public, private schools, we teach the value system, the African value system, that everybody has the value. And that's something that I believe we have to build into the curriculum and make people understand that you were not born a criminal. You were not born to go out and hurt other people. You come from a culture of hardworking people who have always, owned land, who have worked the land, all those things that make everybody feel like they are valuable, they belong into something greater than them. And I think that's something that you have to teach in school. If you can teach about recycling in school, you can teach about what are good values, okay, when it comes to living. Because again, I just recall a life not too long ago, because I had a fortune of living in the countryside when I was a little girl, which those of you who are South Africans know what Transkei is, and those today it's called the Eastern Cape. So I had a fortune of living there, and I've seen the life over there and the life in the city in Cape Town, and to me, the life, even though people were poor in the countryside, they had values that were very strong, that they valued family more than anything. Families meant something. All those things, those little things that make up a human, that make a human being feel whole, those are the things that we definitely need to build on, and make sure that we teach and not make assumptions that people will know. I'm not talking about church here. I'm not talking about, because I know a lot of people are gonna think that that's not what what I'm referring to. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about values that can build a society, that can build a country, that can make us all feel like safe. I mean, there's nothing more important, in my view, in the world than feeling safe in your own person. That is the most important thing. Everything else is worthless. You can be as rich can be. You can be as poor can be. If you don't feel safe, none of it matters. Whether you're a poor person or a rich person, we all want that. We all want to feel secure in our own being. And that's not something that has to do with class. It has to do with the fact that we are human beings. Okay? So let's see who else. Okay, so Ayanda says, the first time I was, I'm going to paraphrase because this thing keeps on disappearing immediately. But Ayanda says the first time he was held at gunpoint was by the police. Believe me, believe me, that's what Trump would say. Believe me, excuse me, I have no love for South African police whatsoever. They need a lot of retraining. I'm sorry if your family member out there is a police person. If you're, and I'm not advocating to hurt police. I think they need training, and I'm gonna talk to some of my white friends here. Okay, what apartheid did was it messed with this. Okay, and what that means is that, and I've seen it in its effects, and that's what I mean by re-educating the mind. I've seen its effect. It's so easy for a policeman to see a black person there and get scared that that person is going to hurt them because they think of the swart gevaar, black danger. It's so easy for the police there to not respect you because you are a black person, because they don't think you deserve the kind of treatment that they would give a white person. Those are the things that we need to teach and say, though, that's not how it's supposed to be. I should be able to go to a police person, whether I'm black, white, poor, rich, or whatever, and feel like they're going to take me seriously and they're going to serve me because they are working for the citizens, not the other way around. So rather than police go around driving cars that the government pays for with taxpayer money and not doing their job, they need to be retrained. Everybody needs to retrain. Everybody needs to be retrained. The little kid that's growing up who sees another black kid and think that black kid does not deserve respect, but when they talk to a white person, they totally change. They totally change and act all nice and, all those things. Those are the things that we need to retrain our minds to understand that whether a person is white or black, it really doesn't matter. Okay? It really doesn't. What matters is that you honor that person's humanity and make sure that you respect them the way you want to be respected. So I don't think there's, I agree with you, Ayanda, there. That's partly because we need the retraining of the mind. That's the reason why I believe in a new curriculum, post-apartheid curriculum, that is designed to basically fix all our minds, right? And also another thing is, in America, I'm going to talk about America. In America, there's something called gentrification, right? Gentrification. A lot of black people, they would buy like housing, and then a lot of white people would leave, and then the housing values would go down, and which means that the black people who are left are gonna basically lose their wealth, which creates another wealth gap, then another generation of poor people, blah 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 blah. So all these cycles are part of what I believe that the only way to fix that is to re-educate the mind that it's okay to live in an all-black neighborhood, spruce up your yard and make sure that you take care of your neighborhood. That way you don't create all these areas where people don't want to invest or don't want to live. Look, for instance, Khayelitsha is a great example. Khayelitsha is right near the ocean. Why don't we invest over there so that people don't feel like they have to run away and go live in extremely expensive places like Sea Point and Kemps Bay and all these places? It's because we are trained that, oh, there are a lot of black people who live there, therefore I'm not going to invest my money there, therefore I'm not going to, like, oh, if I do invest, my money is just going to go down the drain, blah, blah, blah. All those things, those are the things that we need curriculum for, to understand the psychological effects of that, or where that psychologically comes from. Why do we think that way? All those things require that we retrain all our minds, regardless of your economic status. We all need retraining. Remember, some of us went to schools during apartheid where they had education of training, education of what is it called again? Education, DT, Department of Education and Training, but they were not giving us necessarily the right training, right? The training was not the one that was designed to serve the country. The training was the one that was designed to make black people subservient, and so I'm saying that we need a Department of Education and Training, but a different kind of training. So that's what I mean by retraining the mind. And that will take a generation. It's not going to be something you do over a 2-year period. You need 20, 50, 100-year period where you retrain everybody's mind. So let's see. Okay, so I would ask that you support us from where you are. My husband wants to leave as well because of crime. We have 2 daughters. Fear, I totally feel for you. I really do. And this may come across as being insensitive. That's what I did this video because I wanted to prevent that. I believe at this point, running is not the solution. I honestly believe, I think we can make South Africa work for all South African. That way people choose to leave South Africa because they want to leave, not because they are forced by criminals to leave. Many times I've considered going back to South Africa, but then I'm like, what are you doing? You will regret this, But I would love to be in South Africa because my mom is getting older. We spent pretty much all our adult lives, my husband and I, without our parents. And it's not an easy thing to do. And when you leave South Africa, it will seem like, the grass is greener. The grass is not necessarily greener on the other side. But in America, there's less crime, or wherever you want to go, there's less crime, and that's what makes it attractive. Imagine if South Africa didn't have a crime. I just want you to sit back after this video, close your eyes, and imagine a South Africa without crime. What kind of South Africa would that be? And that's really what we need to fix. And as I said, I want us to go from the top all the way, and I don't just mean politicians, because everybody thinks it's just politicians that are corrupt. No, there are a lot of corrupt private citizens in South Africa that are ruining the country right in front of our eyes, always pointing at politicians when it's not just the politicians that are corrupt. So I just want to make that clear. As you can see, I'm going after everyone. I honestly believe that we should go after everyone. I truly believe that, because it's not fair to say let's go after the poor. It's not fair to say let's go just after the politicians. We should go after everyone, including the people in the middle class who buy stolen goods, because without the demand, you're going to kill the supply. Okay? BM Win 22, hey. So she says she would go back to South Africa tomorrow if crime was reduced. And that's the sentiment of many South Africans. And I know for those who live in South Africa, they think that, oh, you just complaining, you just, like, you just listening to the news, blah blah blah. Yes, there's part of that is true, but ultimately, if you've lived in an environment where you didn't feel like somebody was going to snatch something from you, or where you feel like, you somebody's going to attack you. By the way, I've had, as I said, a lot of family members who've been victims of crime. I've been victim of crime. I remember, even when I was in, like, during my high school days, it was so easy for people to just think they can intimidate you and attack you. One of my friend was stabbed in her hand. And a lot of, like, my friends, they've lost kids that are as young as my kids, younger than my kids. And you see, like, a lot of, a generation really that has not had an opportunity to live in a peaceful society. Just think about that. Friends of mine lost children. Friends of mine lost, like, family members. I've lost quite a few family members, actually, from crime. But we think, oh, that's just how things are. No, that's not how things are. We should not allow, think about it, we should not allow criminals to rule our world, because when we're doing that, we are not serving ourselves, and we're not serving South Africa, and we're not serving the future generations of South Africa. Really, we are really ruining the country. That country is so beautiful. All you need to do is take care of the crime issue. um in terms of the law, so Fia says, your policing is poor as well as the law is not applied. And again, that's what this period, I think, would fix, would make sure that if someone breaks the law, the punishment fits the crime and the law is applied. But I want to, as I said, to couple that with lots of social programs to allow people an opportunity and really give people hope. Hope is such a powerful thing, okay? When people believe, if I go out there and work hard and I do the right thing, then that's all I need to do, and all of my hard work will pay off. People go out there and work hard. But if people feel like, oh, I'm just wasting my time because somebody's gonna come and I've saved 2 years to buy a cell phone, and now somebody just comes and snatch it. What's going to prevent that same person from buying a stolen cell phone? Because they think, oh, somebody has my cell phone, so I'm going to buy this one. Do you understand what I'm saying? It becomes a cycle. So really what we want is for South Africans to have hope in that there's a system in place that if somebody does something that they are not supposed to do, they will be punished accordingly. And that will really open up space and time for South Africa to rebuild. Really, that has been always my feeling. You look at countries like China, like Saudi Arabia. I know these are all dictatorships, right? I totally understand that. But sometimes forget about the label. Ask yourself, what works? What works? What works? And then you apply it, knowing that you really are doing all the other things, giving people opportunity, making sure that people, when they have opportunities to rise, to live the South African dream, so that they don't feel like they're wasting their time when they work hard, or that, like, do you know, my mother-in-law passed away never having her own house. Okay, I mean, she does have her own house and everything, but she never finished it even the way she wanted to. Not because she's a lazy person. She sent 2 boys to school, and those boys, yes, helped support her, but there was no need for her to depend on her children, even though her children were happy. Because in our culture, those who don't know, in our culture, you support your parents. You don't let them suffer. That's why we don't have a lot of, like, things like homes and stuff like that. We support our parents. It's a cultural thing, and that's something we need to hold on to as South Africans, and make sure that we don't lose that, right? We support our parents, we make sure we take care of our parents, especially when they don't have the energy to take care of themselves. But the point I wanted to make is that nobody, like, I look at my mom's generation, my mother-in-law's generation, I look at all these people, how hard they worked in their lives, and they never got far. That's something that you need to fix. You cannot expect people to work all their lives and not even be able to leave something to their children, because you have a system really of capital oppression where people are earning peanuts and are never getting far in life. They just work hard enough to come back another day and basically continue to serve you. So to that point, yes, we need to fix all of those things as part of this reconstruction period, in order for people to feel like they have hope that if I work hard, that's all I need to do, and I'll get where I need to get. And that applies everywhere, by the way. It's not just a South African thing. So, but anyway, let's see who else. So Ayanda says even black police mainly target young black people because they know that they can get away with victimizing young black people. I totally agree with you there. That's something, actually, that's here in America as well, believe it or not. But that's something that needs to be fixed, because, as I said, everybody has a value, and everybody has to be valued regardless of skin color, regardless of economic class, regardless of everything. If you want to have a healthy society, you have to respect everyone. You cannot use, in America, there's this thing now of private prisons. I mean, it's probably always been there, I don't know. But private prisons are a great example of people who are trying to profit from putting people in jail. There was a judge that had to go to jail because they were basically lining up the pockets of these people who own private prisons by sending children who are innocent to jail. You are destroying people's lives when you do that. You're basically taking those kids' future. So everybody has to be respected. Everybody has to make sure that they carry out the law, and everybody has to make sure that they follow the law. You cannot mistreat people and expect people to be happy about it. I mean, just think about it. That's crazy. You cannot mistreat people and expect people to be happy about it. You have to treat everyone with respect. And then if people act out, then that's where you bring down the hammer of the law on those people. Then it really doesn't matter who it is, right? The law is supposed to be blind. By the way, it's supposed to be blind. It shouldn't matter who you are. It should be applied across everybody. And then, but the only thing you have to watch when you do that, when you have a strict law like that, especially things like death penalty, you have to make sure that the law is being followed, and that nobody's being, nobody's life is being taken in a casual manner. I can see a scenario where somebody plants an evidence, or somebody make you look guilty, or somebody gives you money, they know that they stole the money, or whatever. It can be anything, but basically they want you to be taken to jail and be punished severely when you didn't do anything. So those are the things that we will need to watch against, and make sure that there are safeguards to make sure that nobody is taken to jail and killed when they are innocent. I do know, some of you know, some of you may not know, during apartheid, there were these things called kangaroo courts. Okay, they were the result of a system, a police system in South Africa that didn't work or serve the people. And so people took the law into their hands. If you steal, people would come and attack you and literally could kill you, because people were so fed up with crime. And that's part of why there was not as much crime as you see sometimes now in township. Not that, I mean, unless I'm looking at stats, I can't really say that. But there was a lot of crime, but people, like would go, even with my sister. When my sister, I do recall my sister, when these people attacked her and robbed her house, the neighbors came and beat the hell out of those young men, and they returned my sister's stuff. But that's not how you're supposed to live, right? So so all I'm saying is that sometimes a person could be jealous of you, when you live in small towns and neighborhoods. Everybody knows everyone. Somebody can be jealous of you and go report you for something you didn't do. So we have to have very strong safeguards and make sure that, like, we're following the law and that the police are accountable. I mean, as I said, as much as people complain about police brutality in America, when you call the police, there will always be someone who picks up. There will always be someone who make an assessment with what they need to call. Usually within 5 minutes, even firemen, everything, everybody comes here. That's something that I have to say I respect about America, especially where I live. I don't know about where you guys live. Those who live in America, I don't know how, like, your services are in your areas, but in our area, like, I've had, even when Luke has had asthma attack, I would call 911 and the firemen and everybody would be here, like, trying to make sure that everything is good. So that's the kind of response you want from the police, not police to tell you, is anybody dead? I'm like, what do you mean, is everyone dead, or is anyone dead? How can you even ask that question when you didn't even pick up the phone? You can only do that if you don't think, because you wouldn't know if you don't pick up the phone. So those kinds of experiences, a lot of black people, by the way, in South Africa still experience that. And to your point, Ayanda, that's the disrespect that I was talking about. When someone is serving other black people, they feel like they shouldn't respect that black person, because they don't value your life. As if, let's say, a white person had called and asked for, I'm not saying that white people in South Africa have it better, because I know a lot of white people have complained in South Africa about, police not doing what they expect the police to do. So to your point, I totally agree. That's the respect that needs to be applied across the board, but that goes to retraining. Everybody needs retraining. Okay, so let's say, who else? Uh, Anita says we should never abandon our native countries. I totally agree. I mean, I cannot, um, like, that's a source of pain for me, and I know a lot of South Africans are probably, why don't you go home and, like, and do I do want to go home, and as I said, mainly because of family. But I would love to be part of the solution. I'm not one of those people who bash South Africa. I'm not. I really think that all these issues are issues that can be solved, but that will require that we sacrifice a lot, even if for a generation, to make sure that we get South Africa where it needs to get, and it can be done. It can be done. Um, so Fatima says the private sector is the most corrupt here. Like, they even use black people as fronts to get benefits of the disadvantaged white collar crime. Fatima, I am 100% with you on that. I'm telling you. That's why people think that when you think criminal, you think about that person who steals something at the shop. No, the biggest criminals and the ones that harm South Africa the most are the white collar criminals, because they rake millions out of South Africa, billions really of rands out of South Africa, and people just assume that, oh, they just work hard and they deserve. But no, there are a lot of thieves that are stealing out of South Africa, and those also need to be dealt with. And so I totally agree with you there. Everybody needs to sacrifice, and I mean that. uh Yeah, I totally hate the private prisons. I do. I think it's the modern day slavery, and that's why there's so many disparities and also everybody is so busy trying to punish rather than fix the problem. Sometimes, and I understand. I've actually suggested that we punish harshly everyone who commits a crime, but you have to fix these other issues as well. You cannot just want to punish and be done. Also, you need to make sure that there's no incentive for people to put people in prisons. When a person commits a crime, they commit a crime against society. So there should be no one whose job is to sit there and collect people so that they can steal money from taxpayers. I'm totally against that. There should be public prisons, and should be the government should mind them and make sure that they, like, people get rehabilitated. And I'm not saying that everybody should be killed. No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that people should be rehabilitated. But you cannot excuse the bad behavior, because that's where the sacrifice comes from. If you don't have a cell phone because you can't afford it, well, too bad. As long as you have food in your mouth, you have clothes on your back, and you have a shelter over your head, that's something that that's the max really that the government is required to do in a Marshall Plan. Everybody has to go out there and work. And really what that will do will create space for South Africans. I'm not even concerned about foreign investment, because I think foreign investment has hurt South Africa, especially in the area of housing, where these people come and take up land, basically just wholesale the land. Then they give these private companies the right to build, and then these people price people out, South Africans, out of the market, because they are advertising to Europeans, to Americans, and all these people who are not South Africans. And these people, all they want to do is buy these houses so they can rent them out and make money. Think about that. Just think about that. You basically have a market in South Africa when it comes to housing market, which has no interest of serving local South Africans, but is more interested in selling to people overseas, so those people can then tell other people overseas, go vacation in South Africa. And then who cleans those houses are South Africans. Those are the people who doing all the work, and they're paid nothing. Do you understand the cycle and how connected all these things are? Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm saying that we should allow South Africans, local South Africans, to get opportunities so that South Africans can first serve South Africa. It's one of the countries in the world where we don't care about our citizens. Looking here in America, okay, if Americans, all they cared about was serving South Africans, how would that work? America would be a third world country. That's what would happen. So you want to serve your people first. I sound like Trump, but the truth is you have to do those things so that there's no human displacement, which is one of the things that always worries me. It's one thing for people to immigrate. It's one thing for people from Europe to want to come and go live in South Africa. That's fine. But you cannot lock South Africans out of the housing market and then expect the country to grow. You're not growing South Africa when you do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? People have to feel like if I work, I go to work and have a job. I can go out there and I can build a home for my children, and I can send my children to school. I can at least afford to feed my children and all those things that come with being a responsible person. But you cannot be able to do those things. You know how much housing shortage there is in South Africa? And when I look at houses that cost like $15 million US dollars, $20 million in places like Camps Bay, I'm like, what the hell? Who in South Africa earns this kind of money? Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's really about serving South Africans, and South Africans of all stripes, not just specific South Africa, but serving everyone, so that South Africa can begin to know what peaceful South Africa looks like. Because we came from apartheid, which was a very violent system, into a crime to into a society that's full of crime. So when do we get to know peace? You know what I mean? So really, that's what I mean by that. So it's almost an hour. I will stop. And thank you so much, guys, for being with me today. I'm so sorry I was a little late. And I actually I was a little late and I had to rush back here. So I'm going to continue to do these live streams. And I'm really, really appreciative to all the people who contributed this time and asked the questions. And because it's such an important, like question to tackle, it's really the one that has shaped South Africa for now, and I'm sure into the immediate future. And so that's something that has always concerned me, but I just don't want it to be used as a political tool. I don't want it to be used as a political ball, because these are people's lives, okay? We just need to make sure that we serve all South Africans, because South Africa is such a beautiful country. And as I said, a lot of us would be back there if it wasn't for crime. So thank you so much to you all, and I hope to see you again next week. And I just love going out at this time of the year, but I'm gonna do my best to be here at least, like during this. By the way, YouTube does not save all the comments. So if you want to comment below and discuss further, please go ahead and do that, because other people may have a different opinion than I do. And don't forget to like the stream. And don't forget to comment if you want, and also share this video to any South African that you know who has a lot of Wi-Fi. Sorry. So thank you so much, guys. I really had an awesome time, and this is a serious issue, but let's keep our like positive hats on. Things are solvable. This is not an unsolvable problem. It's very much solvable. And again, it will require sacrifice from all of us. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna try and stop the screen. This, let's see. By the way, before I cancel this stream, please go ahead and put your questions down there below as well, so that other people can chime in, because all your questions are going to disappear now. That's how it is. You sure you want to stop?